Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well and staying healthy during this challenging time with COVID-19. We're offering some COVID-related webinars in the next couple weeks, so keep an eye on the PHCA website for updates as we're adding some, almost every day. Thank you for joining PHCA for today's webinar, COVID-19 Testing, Clarifying the Options for Post-Acute Care. I'm Wendy Johnson with the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association. Before we begin, I have a couple of housekeeping items to cover. PHCA offers monthly webinars to members to receive updates from department staff on regulations, learn from industry experts on current trends and practices, and to gain a better understanding of practical application tools to equip you so that you may continue to provide the highest level of quality care possible. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available on the PHCA website later today. Webinar has been approved for one continuing education credit for PHCA members, and during the COVID crisis, we are offering the credits to our potential members as well. Credits will be uploaded to NAB within the next 2 weeks for those who have provided us with your unique NAB number. I'll be sending a link to a quick survey. Your feedback is important to us and to our speaker, so please take a moment to complete the survey. All attendees will be in listen-only mode. However, throughout the presentation, please feel free to submit questions using your questions pane on the right hand of your screen, and our presenter will address them at the end of the presentation. Today's presentation is being presented by Doug Sharpe, Vice President of Lab with Medline. Doug will be discussing respiratory testing, including COVID-19 options in the long-term and post-acute care market. I'll now turn the webinar over to Doug.
Thank you, Wendy. I appreciate that introduction. As Wendy mentioned, my name is Doug Sharpe. I'm VP of Lab Capital at Medline. I've got a lab specialist team across the U.S. that specialize in CLIA-waived products. So think about glucometers, urine dipsticks, PT-INR. We also specialize in moderately complex testing, so CBCs, chemistry, aminoassay systems, and we do set up full labs pretty much to handle any tests you might send out. Over the last few months, we've really focused on COVID-19 options that are out there today. We've spent a lot of time in the post-acute market identifying and working with some of the unique challenges you face on a daily basis. Today, as Wendy mentioned, we will focus on the latest molecular and serology options. Please keep in mind that this changes almost on a daily basis. So we'll give you the latest and the greatest news. And of course, as Wendy mentioned, if you have questions, you can put them into the chat box. And when we're done talking about molecular technology and serology, we will open it up for questions. With that, we will start the presentation. So of course, many of you are probably aware of some of the testing guidelines, and they do seem to change quite a bit. But CMS has recently emphasized the importance of testing for COVID-19 in nursing facilities. Who should be tested? Residents with symptoms or prolonged exposure to somebody with confirmed COVID-19, any staff member with symptoms or prolonged exposure to somebody with confirmed COVID-19, and asymptomatic residents and staff. As we know, this virus is commonly spread through the contact with asymptomatic patients, which is obviously making it one of the challenging aspects. So what are your molecular options? So we're going to start out with a Cepheid Gene Expert Express unit. We state that it's one of the top molecular choices for CLIA-waived facilities. And the reason that we state that is true PCR technology. So when you think about PCR technology, it is the same technology that reference labs, hospital systems use. It's considered the gold standard. This particular test has multiple assays on it. And there's everything from RSV, the flu, strep, COVID-19. And I want to emphasize this is a company we've worked with for years, so the platform is not new. What is new is that it can actually do COVID-19, and under EUA, it's a CLIA-waived test. To the right of the slide, you can see the device. It is a small device, a 12 by 12 device, and it has multiple drawers. So you can see a cartridge sticking out. This particular unit has 4 drawers. They sell systems 2 doors, 4 doors, as many as 64. The nice thing is that you can perform multiple tests at the same time. So if I'd like, I could run an RSV, a flu, a COVID-19, starting at the same time or different times. Unique to this instrument is that it continues to expand its platform. So eventually, chlamydia, gonorrhea will be CLIA waived in 2020 or 2021. You can purchase these units, but obviously people, if they can have a free placement, that is desired. So this particular device, and we'll talk about many molecular testing options, each one with different placement programs, but for this particular device, you need to do a combination of flu, strep, and RSV of roughly 600 tests a year, not including COVID-19. Keep in mind that if the EUA goes away, I'm not sure when that will happen, that COVID-19 test might go away also. So you want to make sure it's a device that you can continue to utilize. I talked to a lot of SNFs and LTACs across the country, and this 600 number can be intimidating for some facilities that they don't have that type of volume. I want to bring up a few points. First of all, it is a small unit, so if you have facilities that are fairly close to each other, this unit can be moved. Another thing that I want to bring up is that the sample itself, it is a nasal swab. That nasal swab can be stored at room temperature for up to 8 hours. And if you freeze it, even longer. So it is a possibility that you can move this sample to the system. Now, one of the biggest questions we get is that, can I get the system? As you probably know by now, demand is incredible at this point, and the manufacturers simply cannot meet up with the demand. I truly believe that in the middle of June, we'll be at a different position than we're in today as the manufacturers continue to ramp up production, everything focused on COVID-19. So if you wanted to order a system today, obviously the hotspots are where they're going first, and Sofia is making those decisions. So the Northeast, you can watch the news and you can obviously see for yourself where the hotspots are. But at some point, we believe anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks, you could receive a system. So it's one of the deals where you order a system and eventually you'll receive it. I believe this device, like many of the devices we're going to talk about, you'll definitely have it for the second phase. And what I mean by that is today we're obviously in phase 1. We're during a pandemic. Unfortunately, I think as most people realize on this call, we're probably dealing with the same situation throughout the summer and definitely in the fall when flu and strep hit again. So I'd like to believe that depending on when you order this product, you will be ready to go by the second phase in the fall, but you could be much sooner. It's just something that we're very transparent, straightforward. We can't make any promises. As you can imagine, molecular technology is getting extremely popular. And one of the reasons is not only can you control the testing yourself, you can get results fairly quickly. I can tell you with flu and strep on this particular device, it's 20 minutes. COVID-19 is 45 minutes. That testing time is going to differ between the systems we look at. They also have a Sofia Gene Expert. Now, this is moderately complex, so keep in mind CLIA very basic, urine dipsticks, ET-INR. When we go to moderately complex, we're talking about CBC systems, chemistry systems, and we do have facilities, post-acute facilities across the United States that are moderately complex. They also have another device, the Gene Expert that I've mentioned, that has a larger assay menu base, and it provides additional testing options, but only utilized in that moderately complex world. Moving on to some other options. Many weeks ago, actually probably it's been over a month at this point, with great fanfare, maybe you saw President Trump on the lawn at the White House and they said, geez, we've got this Abbott ID now. It's going to be a game changer. And in some degree it has been. This device is small. You can see the device to the upper right hand corner of the slide. It is EUA approved, so emergency use authorization approved in a CLIA waived environment. It's isothermal technology, so the technology is a little different than PCR, but you can get a result, nasal swab, within 5 minutes. The problem with this particular product at this point, and we've dealt with Abbott ID now for multiple years, it has a menu where you can do flu, strep, and RSV also. But the problem is that even if you are interested today in the device, we're unable to add new customers. So excuse me. So if you order a product, you're not actually going to get a device anytime soon. It could be 2021 before they can actually supply devices. If you actually have an Abbott ID Now system, and we have many customers that do, we can supply them with COVID-19 assays. They're still on allocation. People can't get as many as they'd like, but we're able to supply them with those assays. Another device that is available is the Sakasui Solaris unit. It's EUA approved also. You can see a small picture to the right, but the problem with this particular device is they're still ramping up production. So limited production at this point. We're not exactly sure when folks will be able to order the particular test. Another device that is extremely popular is the Roche Liat. A lot of these devices are across the United States. This device also can do flu, strep, and RSV, but once again, they're waiting for EUA approval. We do believe by mid-June they should have that approval, and we should be able to put units into the field and supply people with the COVID-19 assays. So over the weekend, actually on Friday, we actually got word that the Quidel Sofia 2 is a rapid antigen test, now had the capability, was EUA approved, but had the capability to do COVID testing also. So it's built to near molecular specs, but it has a chance for more false negatives. It's great for the budget-minded accounts. And when I think about this device, I think that it does play out especially well in the post-acute environment. And what I mean by that is that it is a lower cost per test. So we believe the cost per test is going to be $23 for COVID-19 testing. The other devices are probably about $15 more. And as you're going to see here at the bottom, I'm not ready to move from this slide, but it's only going to take 100 tests for a commitment compared to the Sofia device, which was 600 tests per year. But it is different. It's different technology. It's more of a reader. So it is good technology, but it looks at the coronavirus a little different than PCR technology. So antigen testing really looks at the proteins located on the outer surface of the coronavirus that trigger an immune response. So some folks might feel that they need to reflex to PCR testing. The guideline is if you feel the patient comes in with symptoms that are obviously related to COVID-19 and they became negative, that you might want to reflex to true PCR technology. There will be a different CPT code with this also, as there is with molecular technology. So the CPT code will reimburse less than true PCR technology. Today, we do not have a CPT code, so I can't even tell you what that is. This device, though, used in conjunction with PCR technology really is a good answer, or it can be utilized on its own. I know when we talk to post-acute facilities, you deal a lot with Medicare Part A, which obviously reimbursement plays no part in that. But I can tell you for Medicare Part B, for those in your homes longer than 90 days, all these devices that we're talking about do have CPT codes and they are billable. So we've talked about the COVID-19 antigen actually testing for an active virus. Soon, they'll actually have serology available also. And we're going to jump into serology in a few moments. That test is not available today, but we believe it'll be available on the same system within a few weeks. You can see the device is very small, and it also has a pretty good testing platform. Everything from flu, RSV, strep, and Lyme testing. We mentioned before it can be used on its own or with a Cepheid or another molecular platform. And I also mentioned that the purchase, and you can purchase any of these instruments, but the purchase or placement opportunity for this, it's a 3-year commitment where you commit to 100 tests of flu, strep, or RSV. Moving on now to serology options. Serology is interesting in the fact that here at Medline, we have been talking about serology for the last almost 2 months. And at that point, we've always let people know that we're truly looking for antibodies. So you're testing for 2 particular antibodies, IgG and IgM. IgG is more of a memory cell where they believe, and a lot of the science has not been proven at this point, but they believe if you've been exposed to the coronavirus, it will show up in an IgG antibody. And the hope is that we built up immunity. If you've been exposed before and you fought off the virus, you built up an immunity. So it's not proven at this time. They do believe that is the case, but the science is still out. What we do know, though, it can potentially assess a population's exposure to the virus. You could possibly have this immune response against a future COVID-19 virus, but it does not diagnose the current infection. So what happened is that about 2 months ago, we had over 160 serology companies move into the marketplace. And the majority of these serology companies were from overseas. And they started to make crazy claims. They started to make FDA claims that were not true. They started to false advertising. Sensitivity and specificity were all over the place. So to be quite frank, there was just a lot of bad products in the market. So the FDA shut it down quickly because originally it was CLIA-waived, and they made all serology tests highly complex. So when we talk about highly complex, we're definitely talking about reference labs, LabCorp, Quest, some county facilities. Today, there is no such thing as a CLIA-waived serology test. So that simply does not exist. There are 3 rapid tests that the EUA has approval for, but those are all moderately complex. So what the FDA is doing now is they're trying to find out what are the best products in the marketplace. One of the problems with serology tests, and keep in mind, serology tests have been around for a long time, but it is new to COVID-19. And one of the problems serology tests face is what we call cross-reactivity, meaning that it can pick up other coronaviruses. SARS is one of them. There's 4 common colds that are coronaviruses that you could pick up with this particular test. So that's obviously an issue. Another issue is false positives. I tell somebody that's been exposed to the virus, that person goes out thinking that they've developed antibodies. That's simply not true. So the FDA is working on, and they've, at this point, the manufacturers have submitted all their data, at least the reputable manufacturers have, to the FDA, sensitivities, specificities they're looking at, trying to find what are the best tests. We believe at Medline that eventually the government, if they want to accomplish their goal of mass testing, they have to make this, at least some of these tests, serology tests, CLIA-waived. Because if we rely on highly complex labs to do all the testing, it's going to take a long, long time. And we do believe some of these serology tests are very accurate. Medline does have the muscle to vent out serology companies, and we have talked to over 60 serology companies, working with them in regards to their studies, sensitivity, specificity, their background, what have they done before, have they worked with the FDA, and we feel good about the company that we have partnered with. It's called Clarity Diagnostics. It's one of the few U.S. manufacturers of serology tests. They're actually based in Florida. They have manufacturing in California. So today we are selling the Clarity serology test, but it's highly complex. So we can only sell this to highly complex labs. I have no guarantee that this will become CLIA-waived in the near future. We obviously believe it will be, but I can make no guarantees, nor do I know what the FDA is thinking. So today, the way that we handle the serology test, pretty much how we pre-book our flu. There's a waiting list. You can go on that waiting list if you're interested. You simply have to let somebody, Katie Lavelle or somebody at Medline, know you're interested in serology. Tell them how many tests, and they simply put a pre-book form in. If it does become CLIA-waived, we reach out to our customers, let them know it's CLIA-waived, and then we ask them, do you still want the product? So there's no real risk, but I can tell you if this does become CLIA-waived, there will be heavy, heavy demand. So if it's something you're interested in, I think that's something you should consider at least getting on a waiting list. The test itself, and you can see a small miniature picture to the right, it's a simple blood test, a drop of blood, a finger stick. There's no swabs needed. As I'm sure you've seen on the news, that's one of the biggest problems we have. There's just not enough swabs, but there's no swabs needed. There's actually what you would need is a Lancet, a Band-Aid, gauze, but a very simple test. Results in 7 minutes. And when you think about this test, think of maybe a pregnancy test. On this test, there's going to be 3 lines. In those lines, it's going to be IgG, looking at the IgG antibodies, IgM, which is the first antibody that fights off a virus. So it can help us determine how quickly the virus is set in, and then there'll be a control line. Some serology tests do not distinguish between antibodies. This particular serology test does. So with our particular serology test, we're hoping becomes CLIA-waived. It's $15 a test, and there's 20 tests in a box. There are other COVID-19 options, and I want to make sure that you're at least aware of them. These really fall into the moderately highly complex world, but there are open channel PCR systems. So think about a lab, and it could be a moderately complex lab. And as I mentioned, I've dealt with many nursing homes that have their own lab, where you can actually test for the COVID-19 assay on a platform where you can run high throughput. So we can run a lot of tests at a time. And we provide the assays for these high throughput systems, be it an ABI 7500 or 7500 fast or a CFX 96. We do provide that type of assay. And the same thing is for serology testing. It tests for the antibodies, as I mentioned before. It is highly complex. Serology is moving, though, more towards moderately complex. I do believe within the next few weeks that'll be moderately complex, but they're qualitative results. So similar to the point of care test that I just mentioned on the previous slide, they're still qualitative. It's going to tell you, are they positive or are they negative? And at this point, I know a lot of people would like to see quantitative. Let's see some numbers. What does it actually mean? How many antibodies do I have? Because in your arena in post-acute, as people age, they produce less antibodies. So that is a concern. So this test at this point is still qualitative because we're not exactly sure how many antibodies do you need to fight off coronavirus. Once again, I think the more we learn about this virus, as science catches up to this pandemic, we'll be much more prepared. I'm hoping that takes place in the fall or sooner. So we do have two partners, Siemens and Beckman Coulter, where if you have these instruments today, we can provide you with the assays for serology testing. So I tried to wrap things up in regards to not being too salesy here, but I wanted to at least give you the options in terms of molecular technology, serology, what is available in the marketplace today. I'm joined by Matt Molitor. He is our senior product manager at Medline, very knowledgeable in regards to serology and PCR options. But if you have any questions at this point, please feel free to put those into the chat room, and Wendy will let us know what those questions are, and we will do our best to answer those questions.
Great. Thanks, Doug. That was great information that you shared with us today. And like you said, it's changing all the time. So, hopefully down the road, we can keep everybody up to date on, what the latest and greatest changes are, because I'm sure it is going to change, probably several times over the next couple months. So at this time, we are opening up the question and answer portion. Please submit your questions using the question box on the right hand of your screen on the GoToWebinar panel, and we'll have Doug and Matt address them now. And as a reminder, we do have other COVID-related webinars coming up. Tomorrow is one on stress management. I know that we all could use that. I know I can. And then next week, we're working on the CMS reporting guidelines that start this coming weekend. We have one of our attorney partners, Paula Sanders, who is going to be putting that on. We're working on that. We had a conversation on that earlier today. And we're also working on MA eligibility and guardianships for skilled nursing. And that will be next Thursday, May 21st, also put on by one of our attorney partners, John Kennedy and Rodney Meyer with Kennedy Law. Okay, our first question is, do you have the swabs available and what is the pricing?
So that's a great question, and that's obviously something that's been in the marketplace. So I can tell you, obviously at Medline, we have swabs, but it's a terrible allocation issue. So if you have purchased swabs before from us, we're trying to allocate those to you. But swabs continue to be a problem. One of the largest manufacturers of swabs was based in Italy. Obviously, we know that they've had their problems. So the swab swab population, I should say, or access to them is getting better, but we're still faced with some swab issues. I can tell you for everything that we've talked about today, when we talk about our options here in regards to COVID, and we talk about, for example, the gene express unit, those all come with swabs. So if you can get the assay, you're going to receive a swab. When we talk about serology, obviously no swabs needed. But I do hear that question from post-acute facilities that would like to swab patients and send them to a reference lab, the reference lab to do the diagnostic evaluation. Unfortunately, and that's something that you could reach out to Katie Lavelle. She's on this email. Not sure what we can get you in regards to swabs, but that does continue to be a problem. Once again, with your PCR technology, the swabs will come with the assays. So you're not in that bind of having swabs and worrying about swabs.
Great. Next question. Actually, we have a comment with a question. Thanks for the interesting update. And can you advise us on PPE availability?
Yeah, unfortunately, I know Katie Lavelle can with PPE. Please, her contact information is on the screen. I'm specifically lab related, so we deal with only lab products, but I know PPE is a problem. I'm sure Katie Lavelle is more than happy to help you with that. Once again, here at Medline, we're doing the very best we can, but we have allocation issues also with PPE products.
Great. That was the last question. We're still open for questions. We have plenty of time, so if anyone has any questions, please type them into the question pane on the right hand of your screen, and you can see Katie's information. I will be providing this in the follow-up email that I'll be sending later today. So Katie is going to be available for follow-up after this. Another question's come in. Can you explain what an allocation issue is?
Well, allocation basically means that we also have limited supplies, just like anybody in the COVID-19 situation today. We can only produce the supplies fast enough. And with a lot of our products, the demand is up over 700%. So the problem is that we cannot produce the products quick enough, and there's such heavy demand. As much as we'd like to put as much product into the field as we can, we simply do not have that product. So we allocate the product, meaning that depending on what you purchased before, we can give you a certain percent of that. Keep in mind, I mean, we're in this with you. We want to help out as much as we can with PPE, with swabs, but there's only so much product that we can get, and we're trying to do our best to distribute it across the United States.
Great. Yeah, it's an issue for everybody. All right. Any more questions? Pretty quiet group. I think you must have done a really good job, Doug. Oh,
well, hey, I appreciate that, Wendy. And once again, if you have any type of questions, I do believe that for molecular serology options, every facility is different. So you might think that a Sofia is the answer, or maybe a smaller unit, look the Quidel. More than happy to look at any individual situation to help you determine what makes sense. Should you think about serology, etc. So we're here to help. I've got med techs on my team across the United States that work with Katie and with our other post-acute reps. We're here to help, especially in this obviously very trying time, trying to obviously help with solutions and make things as less painful as possible during this pandemic. So I do appreciate everybody's time today.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we're going to be sending a survey later today. And a recording of today's presentation along with the handout. It'll be made available on the PHCA website. Please take a moment to complete the survey and be on the lookout for, again, like I said, more scheduled PHCA webinars. We've got one tomorrow at 2 p.m. We have another one scheduled, which the information is not yet available. We have the May 19th. Look for that information coming out soon for skilled nursing. And then I believe that's for everybody on Tuesday, and then Thursday we have another one at 2 p.m. on next Thursday. So keep your eye out for those. Looks like we do have another comment or question here. With Pennsylvania requiring long-term care facilities to test all residents and staff, how can we procure the needed supplies to do the testing?
Yeah, I think that's a problem, and I understand. I obviously read the same article that you're referring to from Pennsylvania Health Department. The thing is that they keep telling us we got to do all this testing, but the testing just simply isn't available. So I haven't heard the solution. I understand across the United States that they want everybody to be tested in post-acute facilities, but how we're going to accomplish that, nobody's answering that question. I can tell you that if you're interested in doing the testing, you'll be able to get a device. The question still is how quickly. And I want to be very transparent here, and my competitors would tell you the same thing. You're probably 6 weeks away, 8 weeks away from accomplishing that task. So I know everybody has lofty goals. I read the news every day, and it just amazes me that how do they expect us to go about this if the products are not available? So I understand the pain points. I do believe that we're in a different position 30 days from now because they're making a strong effort, the manufacturers, to ramp up production by hundreds of thousands of tests more each month. But to your question, I can't get you a device tomorrow. If you're interested, I think you should get in line and think about what you're interested in, and you can order one, and it'll be sooner than later. But I don't have a great answer to tell you you're going to have a system tomorrow. It's tough at this point.
Okay. All right, we'll just give it another minute or two here. If there's any more questions, we certainly have time. So if anybody has any questions, please type them into the questions pane. We'll just give it another minute. And I just want to give y'all a shout out. We see what you're doing. We know that you're under tremendous pressure, and it's a tremendous challenge out there, but we're seeing great things, and you all are just rock stars and just doing what we know that you do on a daily basis, but it is just shining so bright, and we can all see it. We all appreciate it. Hang in there and know that PHCA is here, and we have resources available for any of your questions. Don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Thank you so much for what you're doing out there. We really appreciate it, and we know that you're doing just going above and beyond, every single day. All right, we do have another question. Inclusive tests, are you seeing a lot of these with the machines? Also, never heard of a false positive, but a false negative. Any background information can you give on that?
So in regards to the false positive is just what it's stating. It's truly you calling somebody, for example, serology, that they have been exposed to the virus, but it's not picking up the true COVID-19, what we're looking for. What it's picking up is another coronavirus, SARS, or maybe the common cold. So that's what we would consider a false positive. We're looking for COVID-19, but it's not picking up COVID-19. It's picking up another coronavirus. So that would be the false positive. And the first part of that question, I'm sorry, Wendy.
The inclusive tests, are you seeing the machines on that?
Matt Molitor?
Yeah, for the testing, like the Cepheid, the Abbott ID Now, the Sekisui, the Quidel, those do require the machines and the analyzers. And the other question around inclusive potentially could be related to some of the components with the test. So as Doug mentioned, the molecular and antigen tests, those products do come with the swabs. The serology antibody test, that clarity test that Doug described, it comes with the test cassette and a little micro transfer pipette, but you would still need to purchase separately gauze and bandages and a lancet.
Awesome. All right, any more questions? These are good questions. Again, we have time, so if anybody has any questions, go ahead and type them in. All right, I think not questions. I think we're going to wrap it up. I want to thank Doug and Matt for presenting on this timely topic. And again, we'll keep, here at the association, we'll keep up on the latest with Medline and our other business partners, and we'll try to get you the information as timely as we can. Hang in there, and everybody stay well. Have a great remainder to your day, everybody. Thanks for attending.